if we're going to invest into a mental health company helping our employees as such with their mental health, we don't see a return on investment, particularly on a number scale. That's their mindset around it right now.
Everywhere we go, I'm stressed. I also say it like, oh, this is so stressful. I'm stressful. But is it really stressful? Like, do I really have the stress, or what is it that's stressing me out, and what can I do about it? So there's also this concept of perception of stress. Always second guess myself, like, am I doing the right thing? Because I don't know what the strategy is. But then reminding myself, like, I'm gonna fail in certain things, but then I'll have to regroup. Yeah, sometimes I have this like fear of failure, that like, should I just go and do something from scratch, or should I just stay in my career where I feel really confident?
I think it's so important for anyone on this journey starting to hear this part as well, because you're not alone in this. Like, I have those moments, and everyone I work with has a lot of these moments as well, and it's not something that we show on social media. As long as we keep on opening ourselves up and keep on having these type of conversation and sharing them with the world, hopefully that does help for anyone listening out there. Open up these conversations with your people. All right, welcome back to another episode of the Stories to Remember podcast. I have a very, very lovely female with me on the podcast today. Her name is Nahrin. She is a teacher, a stress management coach, and she's going through a lot of transformation in her own life and has a really interesting journey already behind her. And I'm so excited to have her on and for her to share her journey with us today. So without further ado, Nahrin, I would love for you to give us an insight into your journey so far, where you've come from and what got you to where you are today.
Thank you, Geeta. Thanks for having me here. So right now I work in education. I'm a leader in education. I work for this company where we are working with LA public schools to transform the most underserved schools. I also have a stress management business, which I just started this year. So I'm a brand new entrepreneur, and I'm very excited about that. I mean, there were a lot of ways, like I still can't believe that I'm here, but I'm excited for that. I think I was in education. I was a math teacher, and even getting to that was really difficult because in my culture, you don't become a teacher, you become a doctor, engineer, pharmacist, things like that. So I was originally in pharmacy school. And, I made this shift, which was a little bit challenging family-wise, but now I'm here as a math teacher. And, I was working on my career, and I had gotten married. And then when I got divorced, it was really challenging. And I had to face a lot of, the legal things and supporting myself. And I had to figure that out on my own because I didn't know many divorced people at all, especially in my community. So when I figured that out, I thought, okay, well, I have to pay it forward. I have to help women who are also alone. I don't want them to feel alone either. So I made a commitment to myself that this is what I'm going to do at one point. But, I got wrapped up in my career, and I also wasn't ready to address it. Like, I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I wasn't ready to like really take that on. And it wasn't until almost a decade later, where I was working as a school administrator, that I got this opportunity to move to LA. I was working in New York at the time. So I got an opportunity to move to LA to work with this company to transform LA public schools. And it was like the universe was just calling my name. I had never even been to Los Angeles, and I kept saying, no, like, I'm not going to go. Like, why would I go somewhere I don't know anyone? I'd never been there. But yeah, there was just this feeling inside me, like, I have to take it. And so I did. And once I was there, COVID happened right after I had moved there 2019 and the pandemic had started. And just the week of the shutdown, strangely enough, I met this girl and she told me about this meditation class. I was
Mhm.
never open to it. I thought that, it's for hippies, there's no way that I would do that. And once the pandemic hit, now I'm at home and there was a lot of grief to process. So I thought, okay, let me give this a chance. Why not? I mean, what else am I doing, right?
Yeah.
And it made such a difference. I've never felt so great. And I felt like so relieved and so, um, so much softer. So I was like, I have to try this again. And so this has become a huge part of my life. I still work with the same teacher that from back then, the one that I got the
Mhm.
contact for. Every Monday night, I have a meditation class with her.
Okay.
And that's, non-negotiable for me. So I've learned a lot and I started to explore a lot of mindfulness activities, but not just that, but like a lot of stress management. Like, how can I address a lot of things that were going on in my life? Like, and what I realized that, like, I had stress, but they were manifesting in different ways, like headaches,
Mhm.
stomach aches, where I was just keeping busy and not addressing them. So once I started meditating and addressing all of those things, it felt like this backpack I didn't know I had was removed. And you do a lot of healing as well. I mean, I had gone through so many things. People in general, we go through a lot of different changes or a lot of different things happen in our lives. And I felt like, okay, now that I have all these tools and I've learned so much, I have to pay it forward. I have to go
Mhm.
back to my commitment to myself, which was to share this with women and help them. So I started my journey that, like, okay, what are some ideas? And I started brainstorming. I even designed this app, but nothing felt right.
All right.
Um, yeah, I have to be 100% in something or not.
Mhm.
So there were all these things I was doing, and this went on for like about 2 years, right? And I just, again, like I would do something and then I hate it and then just, start over again. Um, and so I kind of put this to the side and I was like, okay, let me just keep learning more about all these mindfulness and stress management. So I took these certification programs. It was at that time that I actually got into a car accident. So I was at home all the time. I couldn't move. Like, I went to work, but once I was home, I was just pretty much bedridden. And I'm a pretty active person. I go to the gym every day, or I'm out and about with my friends, or doing a lot of things. But this is the first time, even during the pandemic, I was going out on walks, right? And now I really couldn't do anything. So it was really challenging for me, like emotionally and physically.
Mhm.
So I was like, I have to do something based on my stress management um knowledge, do something to like not go down a hole and like to really make this a productive time where like I feel good about something. So this was the perfect opportunity to go back to this project, right? Like, what do I want to do with it? And so, my career in education and working with these schools, like, I love it and it's great. It brings me a lot of joy. But now I have this opportunity to also work on this business or whatever project I chose. So sitting down, thinking about it, now I had these classes and these certifications, and I was like, okay, it doesn't have to be confined to women. It could be to a
Mhm.
greater audience because everyone needs change, everyone needs stress management. And so yeah, I took advantage of the opportunity and started this business, and I'm still figuring it out now. I'm learning a lot because business is new for me, but it's been exciting. It's been great. So
I find it the first time you told me your story, like it's so interesting how you have all of these moments that really kind of shine a light on, okay, it's time to make a change. And you made the change every single time. Like you grabbed it with both hands and just went for it. Is that something that you've already always had as a kid as well? Or is that something that you've learned over time? Or how did you go about just taking it on and running with it? Because there are a lot of people that are not doing it because they're afraid of, okay, is this really something I need to be doing?
No, this is not something this is something I had to learn and adapt to. My mom always jokes around that when I was little, I was so into my routines, and if I was off by even my bedtime, I would get a fever. And I just couldn't handle anything outside of my routine, even as I got older as an adult. And
Mhm.
I wasn't one to take risks. I always took the safe route. Um, so again, like a change was not good for me. I don't like change. But now, as I learned, life doesn't work out as you
Mhm.
plan it. And that was a really hard lesson for me to learn. And I had to learn it during my divorce. I had this whole life planned out for me. And I was working at the school as a teacher that I wanted. I had the home I wanted. I had the life I wanted, but now,
Mhm.
yeah, it kind of blew up. And so that was hard, but I adapted and I had to learn. And once I was able to learn and make those changes, and like, I felt empowered, like, okay, well, I can overcome that. So I can overcome anything that comes my way. And once I started to take those on and take those challenges, I had more and more confidence in myself to be able to conquer
Mhm.
those things, where it actually pushed me to take on more challenges. Okay, what can I push myself to do now? What can I push myself to do now? So like it doesn't scare me anymore. So like, I mean, even when the pandemic happened, it was really,
Mhm.
really difficult, but I was not afraid of like all the shifts that were happening. It didn't bother me as much as maybe it would have bothered me had I not gone through all those changes before.
Yeah. I love that. It's kind of learning as you go, and I think that's a lot about what life is in general as well. I think it also happens when we get older, in itself, and indeed you get all of these life lessons that you start to feel more comfortable in the uncomfortable moments. So yeah, but it's great to see that you just took it on and went for it. Can I ask you, you mentioned in your story that you had your car accident, and that kind of was because of that you were bedridden for some time. It kind of gave you the tools as well to start practicing stress management even more. But have there any other life changes been because of that? Because it's quite a significant event in your life as well. Um, yeah, was there anything else?
Um, After that, I mean, there were a lot of life changes. I think slowing down was a lot.
Hmm.
I found, I was exercising a lot or going to the gym or like spending my time like socializing. But like it was finding small things that would make me really happy, right? Like I would find happiness in a trip or find happiness in going, on this road trip or like this new dinner place. But now it was like enjoying the really, really small moments that maybe I took for granted before. Um, Going on a walk that's 20 minutes as opposed to 10 minutes, or being able to go and like just, um, I don't know, like just having a nice conversation with someone, because I wasn't able to socialize as much. I really appreciate that now. When get to see my family, maybe I didn't appreciate it as much because I was able to do that, but now I wasn't able to travel. So yeah, it's just the little moments that I really value.
Do you also feel that that continued even after? Because I can imagine when things start to get more normal again, that maybe that kind of fades away and that you start, well, that it's hard to continue to appreciate those really little things.
It has definitely continued because even though I have a lot of my lifestyle back, but I choose to really focus on myself and again the smaller
Hmm.
things. Like, do I really need to do that, or what are other things that can make me happy? I don't need to find happiness by taking a trip to Europe, right? I can find happiness by doing some small things that really bring me some comfort here, right? Like honestly, there's so many beautiful things around me that I never even took, appreciation for. Like there's a lot of nature, or like the different trees or things like that. And I'm like, well, why haven't I even checked it out here? There's a coffee shop, and just sitting there and enjoying the moment. So yeah, I think it still resonates. I've become a lot more of a homebody because of those things. Yeah.
Is that also one of the things that you teach people when you work with them on the stress management, or that you would say it's part of stress management?
I think it comes up a lot because we have a lot of expectations that we place on ourselves, but also that we've been taught to, that means, these are the ways that you will find happiness, right? By having the job, by going on the trip, by looking a certain way, right? There's also this like expectation of perfectionism, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
everything has to be perfect. You know, the work-life balance, right? I have to do a great job at work. I have to put in all of these hours, but I also have to like, have the social life. Maybe moms have to feel they have to be great at this and all these things, but like we don't have to be perfect at it. We also don't have to do all the things that maybe we were taught that we have to do to have a great life. It could look different for each of us, and happiness could look different. Like I was talking to someone the other day, and they were thinking about things that they could do on a day off for self-care. And when they named a few things, they were like, oh no, that sounds so dumb. And I was like, why? If it brings you joy and relaxation, then just do it. It doesn't matter what it looks like or what other people think of. If you find comfort in it, then just take part in it. But I think that conversation comes up. Like, what is really holding you back? What is your barrier?
I think it's so powerful what you just said, and the story that you shared, it goes back to a lot of us, I think, in the society that we're living in right now, that we're almost thinking for another and saying like, oh, that's gonna look weird, because for some reason we've labeled it as weird or as something that don't usually do. And it's so powerful when you get the awareness and start to feel confident in yourself that you don't really care anymore, I guess, what another person thinks of it. But how do you get there?
How do you get to that confidence? I think just really taking a step back and, you know, looking at like, do I enjoy this? Do I not enjoy this? What is it that I want to do versus what is it that people want me to do? Like, why am I making these decisions? And I don't think we ever really take time to reflect, right? Because we're always on the go.
Mhm.
And we also don't know that we have to reflect or we should reflect, right? That's a lot of meditation too, right? It's not about like clearing our mind, but like organizing the thoughts in our mind, right? Like, what are we doing? Um, so like, once I started to do things like, let's say, in my 30s that I enjoyed for myself, and they might not be the norm, but I was like, well, I actually really enjoyed it. Let me try something else. And like, I
Mhm.
enjoyed it. And like, really sitting back thinking like, those were helpful for me and they helped me grow as a person. I had more and more confidence to do that. So I think like the first step is to like take that risk and then see how did it make me feel, and like how did it make me grow as a person. But again, like I think it's really hard and challenging for people to just take that step to reflect, or take that step to like, just quiet.
Yeah, especially in the world that we're living in, where it's a constant whirlwind of things that we need to do, and can do as well. I guess there's so much opportunity out there. So, in regards to kind of then the stress management element, what is there a typical red line that you see across people, that they're struggling with? That maybe has, you mentioned before that it comes out on a physical level that they don't necessarily realize as such that it's coming from stress. Like, I think when we have a headache, we just assume, okay, it can happen. Or when we feel bloated or have a belly pain, like, again, assumed it can happen, but it can manifest from stress. Do you see a typical physical manifestation that people can become more aware of, that they realize like, oh, maybe I should dig deeper?
Yeah. I mean, I think most people are aware of the fact that they are stressed and that it's weighing down on them in some way, like they're feeling exhausted and tired, or they're not sleeping. I think sleep disturbances, the quality of sleep or the amount of sleep, is related to the stress. And I think a lot of people are taking medication or doing some other things just to like help them sleep because that's impacted a lot. And I'll work with people on like mindfulness activities or like breathing exercises to help them reduce the stress, or like even time management and prioritizing. Just small changes can make a huge difference. And it's not to add something on your plate, because we don't want to add more and create more stress, but it's like, what are some shifts that we could do in what you are already living in, but that can really make a huge impact. I think one through line though is that everywhere we go, I'm stressed, I'm stressed, I'm stressed. I also say it like, oh, this is so stressful, I'm stressful. But there's also a perception of stress, right? Like, is it really
Mhm.
stressful? Like, do I really have the stress, or what is it that's stressing me out, and what can I do about it? So there's also this concept of perception of stress. I think it's just become so normalized to say, and then just to leave it there and just to feel that stress. So like, I think our minds, like if we perceive a danger or perceive a stress, we still feel it. We can't distinguish between what's real and what's not real.
Mhm.
So that's why sometimes like we'll see a news story, or we'll see something on TV, or we'll, imagine a future event that, we catastrophize, let's say, but we are actually feeling so much anxiety about it because we actually think it's real and happening to us. So I think if we just figure out like what is actually really stressful, what is actually really a stress factor right now, and what is it that I'm just thinking about and, making inferences about. So,
So
yeah.
what would be the best way for people to go about that? How can they start? Where do they start?
I think the first thing, like, let's say you're in a negative thought spiral, or, you're really anxious about something, which is common, right? Like if you, have something coming up or a situation, it's really just stopping and being aware of that, which takes a lot of work just to have that awareness. And then either writing down or just thinking about what is real or what is happening right now, and what are the things that I'm thinking about in the future. Because we can think about like, oh, all these things will go wrong, and they may not go wrong, right? And those certain things I don't even have control over. So I think it's just identifying like what's real, what's not, because what's in the future is not real right now. What's in the
Mhm.
present is real. And then what are the things that I can control? So if I have a job interview tomorrow and now I'm having so much anxiety about it, first of all, that's not today. So like I'm stressed out about something that's tomorrow and it's in the future, and all these stories that I'm telling myself about it. And so those stories may not even come true. So if I do have those fears, that's normal. What are the things that I could do in order to address it? So if I fear that there's going to be a lot of traffic and I'm going to be there late or something will happen, like I need to go earlier, or if I feel like, okay, they're going to hate me or I'm going to mess up, then you know what, I need to practice more, or I need to do some work on that. So yeah, I think it's just being aware, understanding what's real and what's not, and what's present and what's not in the present, and then what can you control. So, it's a lot of self-empowerment. We let stress control us, right? We let anxiety and all these things control us. It weighs us down, and then we feel so negative, right? It like ruins our day. But we can take control over it. We can be empowered.
Why do you think that if we look at the numbers, stress is increasing significantly, chronic stress even more so. Why do you think the numbers on stress are going up so quickly?
I think one of the biggest stress factors is work, the workplace. Um, and that's a huge source. And there's a lot of reasons, right? I think, first of all, work-life balance is really challenging. So if you have a very demanding job and then you have almost no balance and nothing to help relieve that stress, or you're going home and you have more responsibilities, like when do you have time to like manage your stress or take care of yourself? If you're balancing, let's say being a parent or having being a caretaker, or being someone who's a student outside of work, when do you have time to like yeah, give some attention to yourself, like relax, take a break, like sometimes a lunch break isn't even possible, right? Like you work through lunch, or you go straight through. So I think work is playing a huge role. We're in a place where money is an issue, right? We need to work really hard because of financial state of the economy, right? So I don't think that people can take a step back and say, you know what, I'm going to work less hours, or, I'm going to take a different job. I think people have to work more hours now, right? Or they have to take a second job just because of the way the economy is. Um, and so I also think that because of everything that we're going through, like the workplace culture needs to also shift to help people and, just their mental well being. And I don't think that we've really addressed that in many workplaces. I think what I've seen a lot is that, we can bring food or do one day of wellness or things like that, but that's not really sustained, right? That one day of doing an activity is not going to help your overall culture or help everyone feel good all the time or feel less stressed. Everyone needs breaks during the day. If there was a way to bring in some physical activities, because physical activities really help us, right? So if there was like some connection, like if you had a company with a building, like is there a gym there, or is there some opportunity to like have some gym memberships there? And then also like a space to like have some vulnerability. Like, do you have a place that allows for some conversations to happen, or do you have a place that you can't have these conversations? So I think that all of that plays a role in it, and just the way that relationships are happening right now. We're on our phones, maybe we're not talking as much, we're not interacting. I was reading an article this morning where it said like social interactions actually is one of the best ways to relieve stress. And if we're on our phones more, we're not interacting, the loneliness is like on the rise right now. Like we're not helping each other, we're not supporting each other. So I think a lot of factors are playing into that.
There are a lot of things I want to say on this, but I have one question that has been in my mind since you started talking about this particular part, and that is, do you think that the underlying reason is that people do not have enough self-love for themselves to set the boundaries and take the room to make time for themselves and what they want to do?
I don't think we take time, because I don't think we prioritize that. But I also think we live in a culture where productivity is what brings your value, right? Like if I work X amount of hours, or if I'm really busy, or if I have a higher, you know, uh, a respectable job or something like that is what is valued, not the fact that, I can balance it out, or I took some time for myself. That almost seems like, oh, that was really selfish of me, or like, why did I do that, right? I shouldn't be doing that. I should have been working. So I think that that's what it is. Like, how do we shift that thought process and that mentality? And then how do we actually do it? And I think that that's been a huge part of my work, right? Like, how do
Mhm.
you actually implement those strategies when we're already on the go? So it's just practical changes, because when we think of stress management, when I work with anyone, the first thing they say is like, well, I don't have an hour to take out of my day to do meditation. And I'm like, well, that's not the only way to approach it, right? Let's talk about other ways that are more practical, that fit into your lifestyle and what you value as a person. So I think it's just not knowing how. And even with self-love, I think we talk about it a lot, but I don't think people know
Mhm.
how to get there, right? So I think a lot of these things, we don't really talk about mental health, or we don't talk about self, or like addressing all of these things as much as we should as a society.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. It's one of the things I'm quite proud of, that I've been able to work with a mental health startup company that is now internationally helping about 1 million people, and I'm also working with another mental health company doing the same into the workplace, and they're growing into it, and it's so empowering to see that there are more and more companies starting this conversation and trying to help change the perspective of organizations and how to really help their employees. And I think the big part in what I've seen that makes it really difficult for organizations to comprehend it at this stage is that there is not a real tangible result back for them. So there's no ROI really allocated to, okay, if we're going to invest into a mental health company helping our employees as such with their mental health, we don't see a return on investment, particularly on a number scale. That's their mindset around it right now, which if you look much deeper into the numbers, yeah, there are people that probably there's less churn, or there are people that have less sick days, or people that are becoming more productive as well when they start looking after themselves and their mental health. So yeah, it's a shift in perspective that these companies really need to start making. And you're right, the only way of doing that is having the conversation and opening ourselves up to it as well.
Yeah, I think if we actually talk to companies, right, and showed them the statistics, I think that they would be more open to making some changes, right? But it's like having that openness to hear what is actually true, what are the facts. So there's 1 million Americans who call out sick every day just due to their stress, and they need like a day of relaxation. That's a lot of workers, 1 million, just not even because they're sick, just because they need a day to relax. There's $300 billion that companies lose just because of stress and stress related issues. So that's like a lot of money lost. And so I think that that would be really eye opening for companies to see. There's over 50% of productivity that's decreased because of stress or feeling like disengaged, right? That's a lot. And so many other factors that I think that we need to show companies, but they also have to be open to it. And that's been really challenging. I've met a lot of business owners to, talk to them about like what are changes that we can make. And we have all these values ingrained in us that it's really hard. It's really hard to open that conversation and make that shift. It would take a lot of unlearning or undoing and openness, which is, yeah, it's been challenging.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing I've learned in that regards when it comes to corporate, it almost needs to come from the top down. Like the person on the top needs to be the one pushing this conversation into the company. Otherwise it becomes even more difficult to shift the perspective and to even bring it in. So yeah, as long as we keep on opening ourselves up and keep on having these type of conversation and sharing them with the world, hopefully that does help for anyone listening out there. Yeah, open up these conversations with your people.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about how using these tools around stress management have really changed your life?
They have really helped me develop really positive relationships in terms of how I approach things, or approach people as well, or conversations. Um, I can sometimes, things things come up, or maybe like we don't agree on something, but it's really taking the time to like check in with my feelings and like how to handle a conflict. So that's been really great. Also, just the self love as well, right? And so, because it helps me really focus on my stress and focus on like my own well being, it helps me gain the confidence and gain self love. Like, okay, no, this is me and I have to do things that are best for me. So it helps me say no. It helps me prioritize myself, put boundaries up. And it also helps me, like, yeah, cultivate what's around me, right? Like, what are the things that I want to do? Who are the people that I want to keep in my company? So those are the things that are important for me. And it's like, I don't really care what anyone says either. Um, so that's really been wonderful. And then just like day to day, like I have a very demanding job that I love. Um, and a lot of it is a coaching others, right? And so if I'm coaching other adults who are having, a stressful day themselves, or they're under a lot of pressure, I can't really support them if I'm also like not in the best state of mind, right? So I have to be like, as they say, like, make sure your own cup is full. So like I have to ensure that I'm in great condition to be supportive or make all the changes that I need to make to help the schools, right? So I think that that's really made a difference, right? Like if I know that like, okay, I'm a bit tired right now, or this is really bothering me, it's much easier for me to identify what it is and what I need to make that change. Whereas like years ago, I, I just felt tired or I had a headache and I didn't really know why. And once I figured out, like, okay, it's kind of related to stress, but I still don't know why. And now it's like, okay, I understand what's happening and what I could do about it. I don't have to stay in this state. And now I can support others in that as well. It's just, yeah, it's been a really great change in my life.
I find it the awareness of having that is so powerful. It puts you in such a different position in life in general. You mentioned earlier as well that values is a understanding your values is a really big part of that. How do you go about understanding your values? Because a lot of people don't really know that they even have values as such. They just go about what they think they need to be doing. And I think it's quite normal to have this maybe in a business perspective, but having that in your personal life is very uncommon for most. So how do you go about setting your own values?
Yeah, that's a great question. Because on a work level, you do have values. And even then, it's hard to know what they are, right? How many times do we work on that at work? But I had someone who helped me identify what are my core beliefs, what are my values, right? Or just tell me that, these are something I should think about. And so on my phone, I do have my core values and my core beliefs, right? And then the question I have for myself on my phone is like, how am I showing up? Am I demonstrating these values? And over time, over the years, or with experience or with age, they've changed. And so I have that for work, but then as I started to grow as a person, I also have personal ones, which I also keep on my phone. Now, I know this isn't a common practice, but one thing that I've been able to do, as I said, I coach people, is to also share that strategy as well, that like, let's go over your values, right? And so even if it's a professional setting at work, at the schools, right, we do a lot of work around core beliefs, core values, your vision. And so we do that whether it's on a school level or on an individual educator. And then when I work on the coaching and stress management, like that's the first place to start, right? Like, what are your values? And then what's your vision? Like, where do you want to go? And like, let's ground everything we do on that. Um, And so that's made a huge difference.
For anyone listening out there that might think, okay, I need to start creating my own values, what kind of tips or tricks would you give for them to get going?
Yeah, it might be hard to even know like what are values, like where would I even start? Probably go online and then see examples of like, there are a lot of lists online of what are values, right? And so just choosing, probably maybe start with like 10 that stand out, and then reduce it and say, okay, out of these 10, what can I cut down? And then bring it down to 5. Okay. And then say, these are the ones that I really want to live by. And so I think a great list would be 3 to 5 um, core values. I mean, maybe more is fine too. Like, I don't want to give restrictions, but like, yeah, just starting with this massive list online, which is available, and then like start to break it down. And then asking yourself, and like a journal would be great for this. What does that mean? What does that look like? So if you know that being generous is a core value of yours, what does that look like, right? Does that mean being generous for yourself, for your family, in the workplace, to, your neighbors or society, like doing charity work? Like, what does that mean? And it's okay. Everything's correct, right? Everything is fine because that's for you, right? It defines you. So once you are able to do that, just saying, okay, how am I showing up every day? We're not going to be acting those things all the time, right? We're not perfect. And so like kindness is one for me, right? But there are some days that
Mhm.
I'm just, I've had a bad day. But, that's normal. But that's why I keep those with me all the time, because I have to remind myself, well, how am I showing up? Am I showing up the ways that I believe? And like, if I'm not, what's stopping me? Like, what's going on with me? And what do I need to change my values, or because I've learned something new, or do I need to change my behavior? So, yeah, I think that would be a great way for people to start.
Yeah, I totally agree. I personally work with values as well, both in my business and from a personal perspective. And what I found as well is that it helps with making decisions. Like sometimes you have so many things on your to-do list and then something else comes onto it and it's like, okay, um, where do my values lay at this point that I need to take care of first? Like one of mine is, for example, showing up. And that means showing up for others and being there in the most difficult moments and in the most happy moments and just showing up. And that is for others as well as for me. But it does not mean that I show up if I cannot show up in the right way. So I would always show up for myself first before I show up for another, to make sure that when I do show up, it's in the right energy and in the right kind of position. So I think exactly like you're saying, it's also important to define what those values mean to you and what that looks like.
Yeah.
So distress management is part of what you're doing alongside of your job right now, building your own business and helping the people out there. Talk to us a little bit about that journey of deciding to go into entrepreneurship. You mentioned earlier that it was kind of due to, okay, this is now the right time. Everything that I've learned, I've practiced and preached it, and I've got the certifications, and now I want to get out there and help others. How has that journey been for you so far?
It's been wonderful and challenging at the same time. I have no background in business. I know nothing about it. I can tell you everything related to education, but this is a new realm for me, which is very daunting. But I've been learning, and I'll go. I took a small course on like starting a small business. Right, it was online because I wanted to understand all the legalities of it. So that was great and helpful. And then I'll watch YouTube videos, and then I'll reach out to different people to ask. So I've been very resourceful in that way. And like, yeah, like YouTube is like my best friend. Like, oh, what do I need to learn about this? But then also reaching out to others. So that's been a lot. And I always second guess myself, like, am I doing the right thing? Because I don't know what the strategy is. But then reminding myself, like, I'm gonna fail in certain things, but then I'll have to regroup. So that's hard sometimes because I love learning something new, and that was a lot of why I wanted to do this. Like, I have a vision, or I like to create things, right? So this is an opportunity for me to do that. But at the same time, I'm scared. This is at this point in my life now. I'm trying this whole new realm that I have no familiarity with. Yeah, sometimes I have this like fear of failure, that like, should I just go and do something from scratch, or should I just stay in my career where I feel really confident and put all of my energy into that and keep having success there? So that's been difficult. I think like one of the things is when someone says to me like, oh, you know what, this was really helpful and it's really changed or impacted me in such a great way, and they give me examples, that really really motivates me, and just reminding myself of, you know, why I want to do it. But I do forget, I do forget about that, because sometimes that fear really does take control of me.
Yeah, and thank you so much for sharing that. I think it's so important for anyone on this journey starting to hear this part as well, because you're not alone in this. Like, I have those moments, and everyone I work with has a lot of these moments as well. And it's not something that we show on social media or is being talked about a lot behind the scenes, because we're all trying to paint the nice picture on the forefront. And so I think it's so powerful to know that we're not alone in that journey. And I applaud you for going out there. YouTube is also my best friend. There is so much to find on there, so much to learn. Do you find that that can also sometimes be the reason why it gets hard to have a way forward, because there is so much that you can listen to and everyone has their own opinions of doing things, and it might make it harder to pick a direction.
Yeah, glad you said that. It's so true. There's so much out there. And then the more you learn, the more you know, realize there's more I don't know, right? And there's more I need to learn. Um, and so that becomes overwhelming too. Like, oh, I need to work on this, I need to work on this. And so there was like one part of the business that I needed to work on. And so there were multiple different strategies that were there. And so I had to ask myself, which one do I feel most comfortable with? Or which one feels right to me? I don't know if I did the right thing, but I did what felt the best for me out of all the strategies that are out there. But I think it's important to like do the research and to listen to as much as I can. So yeah, that it is a lot though.
I think it's so awesome though that you asked yourself like, which one does feel right to me, instead of just blindly following it. I think that's a very powerful way of going about it, because ultimately the more aligned and good it feels to you, the easier it will to accomplish that or continue on that strategy as well.
And just knowing like I'm gonna have failures, I'm gonna make mistakes, but I have to be okay with that.
Yeah. Yeah, and that doesn't change either. Like, it doesn't matter. Even if you're 5 year in business, you're still going to make mistakes. Like, it's inevitable. It's you part of human life and part of a journey, right? And as long as you want to grow and want to get out of your comfort zone, mistakes are going to happen as such.
Yeah. And like, kind of tying back to what you were saying before, you know, people see what they see on social media or, just in some conversations. We don't tell them the mistakes. We don't tell them necessarily the problems or the fears that we feel. So they'll say, "Oh, everything's going great, right?" And I'm always like, "What, really?" I just had to like spend all these hours, and now I'm afraid of like which strategy I picked, and like, it's always so shocking for me to hear. But it's also nice, like, sometimes this also catches me off guard where I've had a lot of women who have reached out and said, wow, you did this with a full-time job and going through everything that you've gone through. And like, I have all these ideas, but maybe it's possible for me to make it happen also if you were able to do that. And I'm like, yes, you can do that. It's possible. It's not going to be easy, but it's possible. And so I really do think that maybe we should spend more time talking about maybe the challenges or the fears as well, or the difficulties, because we want to inspire people, but we want to also prepare them for what life is like. I mean, anyone can do this, right?
Yeah.
We have dreams, but we don't take enough steps to go for it.
No, and I think that's exactly like you're saying. It reminds me when someone indeed tells you like, "Oh my God, are you doing this? It looks so awesome. You're great. I want to do this too, but it looks so far away in my dream." Like I was that person a couple of years ago. I was like, okay, I want all of this, and yeah, I don't know how to get there. And now I'm here doing the things I've been wanting to do, and doesn't mean it goes without a struggle, but as long as you just keep moving one foot in front of the other, then you can get there. And I think that's the biggest challenge for most, taking that first action, just committing to it and being like, okay, I'm going to do this. So I'm going to put my first foot down and I'm going to take my first little step, no matter how small it is. It's, yeah, every little step helps, right?
Yeah, and it is the first step. I think once you can do that. And it wasn't easy, like, because even when I had the accident, it wasn't like I talked myself into taking that first step. Because I didn't know what I was doing with myself. I was just laying around, pretty unhappy. I couldn't go to the gym. But I had these two friends, they're great friends of mine, and they were kind of pushing me like, yeah, just do it. We were talking about like, actually pursuing the business. And I was, again, like very fearful. And they were like, just do it. Take the first step. It'll be fine. Right. Just trust it. And I was like, okay, let me just try it. I thought it would be a much harder and longer process, but everything was coming like together, like things were fine. And any problem that came, like I was able to problem solve it. So yeah, I would just tell people like, just take that first step, which is like the hardest, and everything else will be okay.
I love that. It kind of feels like that is a really good ending to this episode today. If anyone would love to learn more about you and the work you're doing, and potentially even work with you, where can they find you?
I'm on Instagram. My handle is Unstressified. That's the company's name. And also the website is unstressified.com. So reach out to me. I'm happy to, book a session or just have a conversation at any point.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here today and for sharing all of your knowledge and tips and tricks in your personal journey. I'm sure a lot of listeners are going to be having a blast listening to this. So thank you very much for being on.
Thank you as well. This was great.
Wrap up another episode on the Stories to Remember podcast. I want to thank you for being a part of our community. It's your support and engagement that keeps me going. I would also like to request a small favor. If you found value in this episode and enjoyed our podcast so far, I kindly ask you to subscribe. Your subscription not only means the world to me, but also helps me to expand the reach, connect with more incredible guests, and continue sharing inspiring stories. Furthermore, your engagement and feedback are invaluable to us, so please do share your thoughts on the podcast. For now, once again, thank you so much for tuning in. Stay inspired, stay motivated, and I can't wait to have you with us next time. See you then.